No souls for sale here, mate. They say the fool thinks himself to be a wise man, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool. I say that to say this. You might take my life, but you can't take my soul. You can't take my soul. You might take my freedom, but you can't take my soul. No, you can't take my soul. You might take my life, but you can't take my soul. You can't take my soul. You might take my freedom, but you can't take my soul. No, you can't take my soul. Yeah. They can't use my music to advertise for Coca-Cola. No. They can't use my music to advertise for Motorola. No. They can't use my music to advertise for anything but truth. I guess that's the reason the industry won't let me in. Refuse to be a product or a brand, I'm a human. Refuse to contribute to the gangster illusion. Whether I'm number one, number two, or number three, I'm unique and there will never be another me. And there will never be another you. Be proud of who you are, don't copy what the others do. They are not superior, you are not inferior. When we realize that, there's gonna be hysteria. Not commercial, so it's controversial what my pen has written. When they listen, many have risen from the mental prison. That's why you don't see my face up on the television. But every time I try to sleep, I hear the devil singing. I have often tried, but I couldn't succeed. Though I've gone through day and night. You might take my life, but you can't take my soul. You can't take my soul. You might take my freedom, but you can't take my soul. No, you can't take my soul. You might take my life, but you can't take my soul. You can't take my soul. You might take my freedom, but you can't take my soul. No, you can't take my soul. They can't use my music to advertise your watch or your car. Can't use it to advertise the drink you got at the bar. Can't use my music to advertise for anything but truth. I guess that's the reason the industry won't let me in. My integrity is the reason I'm thinking separately. Keep your 360, I can do this independently. It's likely I'm quite mad. Why? Cause I say with ease, slavery gave the streets Nikes and iPads. They don't like my rhymes, say my style is like a lecture, but I'd rather die than smile with my oppressor. I'm an honourable student with the facts on your Judas. You're not hip-hop or grind, you're just McDonald's music. Not commercial, so it's controversial what my pen has written. When they listen, many have risen from the mental prison. That's why you don't see my face up on the television. But every time I try to sleep, I hear the devil singing. I have often tried, but I couldn't succeed. Though I've gone through day and night. You might take my life, but you can't take my soul.
It's something big, something strange, and something never seen in the universe before. Saturn, the solar system's most bizarre yet beautiful planet, has just gotten even more mysterious. In 1979, the Voyager spacecraft showed a perfect geometric form over the North Pole. In October 2006, the Cassini craft found that it is still there.
It's just bizarre, and it sits there kind of still. It doesn't move with the planet. The pole, there's a hexagonal feature, a six-sided polygon that encircles the pole at about 78 degrees north latitude. And it's sitting there as a set feature.
The hexagon is similar to Earth's polar vortex, which has winds blowing in a circular fashion around the pole. Saturn's vortex can fit 4 Earths inside of it and extends 60 miles deep into Saturn's clouds.
And what's more bizarre, Voyager saw little tiny clouds going around at about 100 meters per second, which is about 200 miles an hour, going around this racetrack. People thought, well, maybe it's just a temporary thing. How could this stay there? It's been there now for at least 20 years, and we're going, what is this?
Richard C. Hoagland talked about the hexagon 10 years ago, maybe 15, Richard, wasn't it?
It was 15. 15 years ago, I had the privilege of standing in the Dag Hammarskjöld Auditorium, which, by the way, has 195 seats, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I had to do 2 back-to-back presentations because there was not enough room, and we had to do 7 hours total. But the most remarkable thing is that this was taken, this image of this extraordinary geometric figure has been known since 1980, since the first Voyager flyby. What was astonishing to everyone then, and what is astonishing to me now, is that it's still there. This is what all the excitement is about, because the new Cassini mission, which is this incredible Greyhound bus-sized spacecraft that has Saturn now orbiting, not flying past, but orbiting, took some really amazing 12 days of infrared photography, far infrared, which is the heat radiation coming up from the interior of Saturn, over a 12-day period, and they made this movie, which is going to be on the extensive, article that I'm working on right now for the Enterprise Mission website, which is not quite ready because, George, you kind of, got to me a little sooner than I thought you were going to.
I couldn't wait. I told you earlier when this thing broke and you and I started conversing, I was going to look for the hole to get you in fast.
So we have a hole on Thursday night, okay?
So we have the hole.
Anyway, by tomorrow I'll have this probably posted, and there's some amazing photography, synoptic, different wavelengths, different levels. This thing, George, is kind of like the Rosetta Stone. It's the key to so much of what I've been discussing with you and Art going back, before I did the UN, about hyperdimensional physics and how the solar system really works. And I'm really kind of amused to see the NASA people saying things like, well, we can't understand it.
Yeah, it's
just baffling.
It's bizarre, they say. But I've got to ask you, Richard, what the heck is it?
Well, first of all, the clouds we're looking at are not solid features. Saturn is one of the gas giants, so there's no solid surface. You're not looking at mountains or valleys or whatever. You're looking at an incredibly big, dense, fluffy atmosphere. And this set of hexagonal lines, 6 sides, perfectly straight, centered on the pole, with an interior hexagon inside the outer one, is about 25,000 kilometers across. You could put 4 Earths side by side across this thing and just touch each edge, each side. And it's made of clouds. It's made of ammonia clouds. And what's really cool is to see in some of the infrared shots that just as we saw in 1980 with the Voyager visible light imagery, we're seeing that the clouds are racing backward, George, along the edges of this hexagon at over 300 miles an hour. And they're making the turns, the 60-degree turns at each of the corners. I mean, this is just so phenomenal for a fluffy, insubstantial atmosphere of gases and clouds. I mean, no one can imagine, certainly not at NASA, how this thing works. Well, I did at the UN 15 years ago, and I stood up there and I laid it out. It's all about hyperdimensional physics.
I mean, it is absolutely mind-boggling to think that a cloud pattern on top of a pole of a planet could have that kind of shape to it and stay there for so long.
Well, that's the really cool part. Nobody except us apparently expected this thing would persist. I mean, when we first saw it, I realized that it was another part of the puzzle, the connecting the dots with the whole hyperdimensional model, which predicts very nicely why you have huge cyclonic features near the equator of these planets at 19.5 degrees, why you have volcanoes with lava coming up from the outer core of the Earth on Earth at 19.5, which is the big Hawaiian volcano, why you have the largest volcano in the solar system, ancient and fossilized and a huge pile of rock on Mars at 19.5, because rotating planets are literally able to create force structures inside. These are standing wave patterns, which allow for energy to come up at these preferred points. Mm-hmm. And one of the signatures is 19.5. The other, if you have the right dye in the stream so you can see it, like the atmospheric ammonia in Saturn's atmosphere, is this incredible hexagonal feature precisely located around the north rotational pole of the planet Saturn.
Will it ever dissipate, Richard?
No, it is permanent. As long as Saturn exists, this will be there. So it's going to be there for a lot of study during the Cassini mission, and I imagine during the extended mission, they will crank the orbit up again into this quasi-polar orbit, which is at a very high latitude looking down on the north hemisphere, which, by the way, you can't see the northern hemisphere right now because it's in darkness. Saturn is tipped about like the Earth. It's tipped about 25 degrees to its orbit. We're tipped 23.5. And so the northern hemisphere of Saturn, particularly the poles, is in winter right now. It's not going to get sunlight for another couple of years. So they can only look at this thing and monitor it with the infrared. And the infrared is penetrating deep in the atmosphere, although on a planet which is 60-some thousand miles across, 50, 60 miles is not very deep. But it's deep enough for them to see, again, they're not expecting this, that this thing has multiple layers, that the hexagons go down, kind of like one of those nested Chinese puzzle boxes.
Yes, exactly.
And it goes down in toward the core of the planet, which, of course, is intrinsic to our model, because all of this geometry, all of these standing waves, all of this patterning is due to the energy coming up from the center of Saturn, which is, in fact, coming in from another dimension, from another dimension, from another dimension, from another dimension.
Mini-storms that push the jet stream into a wave-like shape as it goes around. By spinning columns of water at different speeds, scientists have been able to reproduce the six-sided pattern in the lab.
The Nazis believed deeply in many kinds of ancient mysticism and occult practices. Heinrich Himmler was an active occultist and took an intense and very personal interest in what went on at Wewelsburg. He visited the castle at every opportunity.
Himmler would arrive across the gate. He would enter with the car and his generals. The car would stop here. Himmler would leave the car. There would be an orchestra, there would be his generals, there would be soldiers, there would be a ceremony. Himmler would have been greeted, and then he probably would have gone through that door inside the main hall, where there is a very important and secret symbol, which is still here today. Assume that the group that got it here would be 12, including Himmler, making it 13, the unholy number 13.
The most sacred SS symbol was the black sun, which was worshipped here at Wewelsburg. The sun is represented by the wheel shape on the floor, which gives off a purple afterglow.
The symbol of the black sun, the energy is black. It's the antithesis of the sun.
So the mindset of the people in Germany around the start of the 20th century, when these societies were being formed, is really no different than it was anywhere else in Europe. For about 50, 100 years now, there's been a slow buildup of interest in the occult and interest in the people who can talk to other realms, and that information was actually quite credible.
It's called Occult History of the Third Reich, a phenomenal documentary series that explains the occult underpinnings of the Nazi ideology and agenda. And for people that don't understand that Nazism was a solar cult, it was a cult of the dark sun, the black sun, the Schwartz sun. If people don't understand that this was an occult ideology that drove the Third Reich, you just are still asleep. And if people don't understand that this is the same solar cult that's still ruling us today, you just don't get what's really going on.
We're going to be out on the streets of LA today. I've got a Trump pamphlet here, but I've replaced all the quotes with Hitler quotes. We're going to go find some Trump supporters and see if they can tell the difference. How you doing today?
Good, good. Thanks for stopping me.
You're a Trump supporter, right?
Of course I am.
Perfect.
Go Trump.
Go Trump. Good. You're a supporter of Trump, correct?
Absolutely. Take a look at this tie.
Oh, wow. Donald Trump tie. I wanted to read you a couple quotes and kind of get your feelings on them and kind of see how you felt about what he was saying.
Sure.
Anyone who sees and paints a sky green and fields blue ought to be sterilized. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's a lot of people that should be sterilized according to Donald Trump, so sure.
Can you read it to me one more time?
Sure. How fortunate for governments, so how good for the governments, that the people they administer, the people they take care of, don't actually think. Don't think.
You look at the Democratic Party and they prove that. That's why I'm voting for Trump.
He's a smart man. I mean, he's got the world by the balls right now. I mean,
Sure.
he has a lot of money. He's very influential because of his money and what he's done with, like, you know, his empire.
Humanitarianism is the expression of stupidity and cowardice. Kind of makes sense. Like, you know, he supports war and he wants to make sure that we're the strongest country, right?
Yeah, I would guess.
The more economic difficulties increase, the more immigration will be seen as a burden. Do you think that that's a correct assumption? That's what he's going to try and do with immigration?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as our economic system starts improving, we don't have to worry about the immigrants anymore. They'll go away.
Who says I am not under the special protection of God? What do you think about that? Do you think...
I feel like that's okay.
That's okay?
If Trump's an atheist, that's okay.
Sure.
It's totally cool.
He's under the protection of God. Good. I do not see why man should not be as cruel as nature. Well, why do you think he comes up with that?
Well, man is the cruelest animal.
I see.
Great liars are also great magicians.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I think that, you know, he's going to lie in any way, probably to, like, support the country, to keep the country going.
Good.
There'll be good lies, you know.
So you support everything that he's kind of said in this pamphlet here and in these quotes, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm a Trump fan.
Because Trump,
you know.
because Trump said it. Do you support these quotes then? You support Trump?
I support him.
Yeah.
I actually changed them, and they're all quotes from Hitler.
You made this pamphlet and did that? Oh, my God. I'm definitely not down with racism.
Okay, so you're not a Hitler fan. That's good.
No,
it's a good thing. Good thing, not a Hitler fan. These are actually all quotes from Hitler, and I just replaced them in this pamphlet.
I'd say you're lying to me.
They are, though. they're quotes from Hitler. So do you still support Trump?
Yeah, but I don't support Hitler.
Well, but you support these quotes, all right?
Well, if Donald Trump said him, I'd support him.
If you knew what was good for you, you joined him.
Der Programmverkündung gemeinsam den Schwur der Treue. Ich schwöre Adolf Hitler. Unverbrüchliche Treue. Unbedingten Gehorsam. Sieg Heil! Sieg Heil!
Okay, I've never done this before. Can I have a pledge, a swearing? Raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I, no matter how I feel, no matter what the conditions, if there's hurricanes or whatever, that's good enough, will vote on or before the 12th for Donald J. Trump for president. Thank you. Now I know.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now you were inside the Trump supporters amongst all these white supremacists. You had a ticket to get in there, and tell us what happened.
Well, I was like, I got recognized. So the Minutemen and the
other white supremacists.
They were notifying security. You know, like they were telling them something about me. So every time I would go, security would like follow me around.
You weren't white, so you didn't belong in there.
Yeah, of course. So of course I was like a few Mexicans in there, and they would just follow me around everywhere I go, and I found it awkward. So every time I go to the bathroom, they would follow me too. I was like, that's awkward when you follow somebody to the bathroom. So the second time I went to the bathroom, they followed me, yellow security. And then I got out of the bathroom stall, and there was another security with the tie. So they followed me outside. All of a sudden, I see like about 20 security guards, including the yellows. And they said, "Come outside." Well, what did I do? And they'll come outside. Well, and that's when I got my camera, turned it on, and I'm like, "What did I do?" And he grabbed me, and I'm gonna leave me alone, and he shut off my camera.
Okay, so this is a preview of what's going to happen in Trump's America. If you're not white, you're going to stick out, and they're going to send security or police or the army or the Gestapo after you.
There's a historical relationship between mass surveillance on a population and the crushing of dissent of that population. Can you explain that?
Well, that goes back to Caesar Augustus, I would say. Anybody that opposed him, you needed to know about it, first of all, and once that happened, they would disappear. Well, the same was true in the Soviet Union or East Germany with the Stasi. If you said anything out of line, you ended up in jail. Or in a sanitarium or something, or in a gulag somewhere. That same was true of the Nazis and the Gestapo and SS. They would do the same to people. Now, this is historically true. This is the way totalitarian states operate, and this is gathering knowledge about people and the entire population is a totalitarian procedure.
My name is I'm the director of the Mexica Movement. We're an indigenous rights organization, and we promote indigenous rights.
So why are you here today?
We're protesting Trump here, kind of like what the Jews should have done in the early 30s. The Jews thought, well, yeah, he wrote all that stuff in he's not really going to do anything. And the Jews were dead wrong. 6 million of them were dead wrong because Hitler did exactly the same thing. And Trump is preparing, that's why we have this poster here. He is preparing to bring, he says he wants to make America great again. No, he wants to make America white again. The KKK supports him, white supremacists support him. They can read between the lines.
He may disavow them all he likes, but Donald Trump's allure to racist is rearing its ugly head in these final days of this contentious campaign. David Duke is one of Donald Trump's biggest and least welcomed fans in Louisiana. Duke is barely getting 5% in the polls, but it was enough to get him on a debate stage and voice his admiration for Donald Trump.
I will be Donald Trump's most loyal advocate to make sure his nominees go to the Supreme Court.
Mark Potok with the Southern Poverty Law Center says racist groups of the past have gotten new life, like it or not, from Trump.
I think from the point of view of the radical right, Donald Trump has been playing a careful little game of footsie with them since the very beginning of the campaign. I think they feel clearly that Trump is essentially on their side, if not precisely holding the same views.
It's been an ongoing problem for Trump, stumbling over questions on how to handle support from known racists.
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on? Because, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
But I guess the question from the Anti-Defamation League is, even if you don't know about their endorsement, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you. Would you just say unequivocally you condemn them and you don't want their support?
Well, I have to look at the group.
Trump did eventually go on to disavow Duke, but he's been walking a thin line ever since.
We're going to watch Pennsylvania. Go down to certain areas and watch and study and make sure other people don't come in and vote 5 times.
His recent calls for poll watchers to protest against rigged elections has led to charges of racism because of the focus on inner-city polling places. And his campaign has gotten support in the form of robocalls. Last week it was a robocall in Utah which labeled a third-party Trump opponent as a homosexual. Earlier this year, white nationalist robocalls went out in New Hampshire saying vote for Trump to keep Muslims out and illegal immigrants deported. Jared Taylor, who calls himself a white advocate, told CNN, Donald Trump may not like him, but he likes what Trump says.
Do you think that Donald Trump wants your support?
I don't know whether he wants it or not. I think he wants support from everyone. Whether or not he would agree with me is an entirely other matter. Remember, it is I who am supporting Donald Trump, not Donald Trump who's supporting me.
Why do you think he is so popular?
Well, because he appealed to the white supremacists in the white supremacists.
But are there really that many white supremacists?
America was built on white supremacy. Have you heard of slavery? Have you heard of the killings of the indigenous population of the whole continent where Europeans were involved? He's talking about make America great again. What, like the days of segregation? The days of slavery? The days of Indian killing? What exactly does he mean by it? He's talking about white supremacist America. There was a white supremacist America. In World War II, the U.S. went in there as a white supremacist to fight other white supremacists, and they had segregation in the military, they had segregation in the cities. It fought as a white supremacist nation. That's what he's talking about, going back to that white supremacist nation of before World War II. It's like right now we have one of our supporters here, he ended up getting arrested. I don't know, he already got that whole thing. He ended up getting arrested just for being a non-white person in an all-white audience. And who spotted him were white supremacists. They said, hey, that guy, because he's kind of notorious with them, he videotapes and confronts the Minutemen and the local Nazis. And so he did nothing wrong. He had a ticket to be in there. And the white supremacist said, he doesn't belong here. All he was going to do is record what Trump was going to say. So, totally legal. But they violated his rights to be there. And that's a sample of the future America that we got. Just a small taste in Germany in the early 30s. But the Jews were saying, no, this is a civilized country. What Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf, he's not going to do any of that. But they were wrong. They were dead wrong. 6 million of them were dead wrong. We need to protest, and that's why we're here. Again, we got Trump here getting enthusiastic support from the KKK and white supremacists all over the place. He wants to make America white again, and they're out there supporting him.
It was the 28th of March, 1933. Adolf Hitler had been dictator of Germany for 5 days. Even so, unless you openly opposed the Nazis, your life went on as before. But for some, that was about to change.
We are having lunch with a law professor and his wife. They are both Jewish. The amazing thing is that this clever, charming woman is not at all opposed to the Nazis. On the contrary, she lectures us on the outstanding qualities of Adolf Hitler, on the greatness of the age which we are allowed to witness, on the national rebirth. And she is firmly convinced that no harm whatsoever will come to educated Jews in Germany.
The phenomenon that we're seeing here is generalized rage. So, for example, take Donald Trump. He's a clown, literally, could be in the circus. He's getting huge support from people who are angry at everything, mostly white males, working class, middle class, poor white males, and their wives and traditional families. They are furious about everything. Everything's been taken away from them. There's no economic growth for them, there is for other people. The institutions are all against them. There's concern, deep concern, that they're losing their country because they, generalized they, are taking it away from us. That goes back to a strong nativist tradition in the United States. It's a country of immigrants, but all the way through, there's been an effort to construct those of us who are here as not immigrants. And now there's the picture of us as being overwhelmed by Muslims, Mexicans, Chinese. Somehow they're taking our country away. And it's based on something objective. The white population is pretty soon going to become a minority, whatever white means, and the people who regard themselves that way. But the response to this is generalized anger at everything. So every time Trump makes a nasty comment about whoever, his popularity goes up, because it's based on hate, hate and fear. And it's unfortunately kind of reminiscent of something unpleasant. Germany, not many years ago. It's worth remembering that in the 1920s, Germany was the absolute peak of Western civilization. In the arts, in the sciences, it was regarded as a model of democracy. As late as 1928, Hitler got about 3% of the vote. It went from the peak of Western civilization to the absolute depths of human history within 10 years. And I don't want to say it's identical, but there are similarities.
If people don't understand that this was an occult ideology that drove the Third Reich, you just are still asleep. And if people don't understand that this is the same solar cult that's still ruling us today, you just don't get what's really going on. When are you going to wake up? You wanted to be a star. A star is a fallen angel. That's why they're called movie stars.